My name is Purcell Johnson. I've been with my wife, as she mentioned, since I was the age of 15 years old, and we have three beautiful children together. Our oldest son, me and my wife, he's actually 11. We have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old as well as of right now. So today my talk is on understanding the millennial mind and closing the void. So I'll start with, what do they say about millennials? They say millennials are impatient. They say millennials are lazy. They say millennials are always on their smartphones. They say millennials don't care about others. They say they feel entitled. They say a whole bunch of things about millennials to categorize the name millennial. But I'll start with Generation Y. Generation Y is actually the actual common name for the generation millennial. They subtitled it millennial in regards to Generation Y came after Generation X, which we call our parents. Before Generation X, which we call our parents, there was the baby boomer generation, which started from 1946 to 1964, which a lot of our grandparents will be considered as baby boomers as of right now. So we went over what they say about millennials. Let's now say, what do they say about the baby boomers and the X's, as we call our parents? They say the baby boomers and the Generation X are ambitious. They say that the baby boomers and the Generation X are driven. They also say that they are loyal, which are a lot of the foundations that us as millennials, we still look after and respect today. So now, what connects us all? What connects the baby boomer to the millennial? And coming up next, Generation Z. Let's start with Facebook. The time that I knew it was time for me to get off of Facebook and go to another platform was when I saw my grandfather, who's a baby boomer, on Facebook. Now, I love to see that he was on Facebook, but he thought that I thought that he was stalking me. He was like, "You don't have to unfollow me." I said, "No, actually, I prefer you to stay on Facebook, so that way I can send you a picture of my daughter, who's his granddaughter. That way he can see the pictures of her first soccer game, or her third birthday, or my son Cameron, who's 11, his first AAU basketball game." Facebook is now what connects me to my grandfather, who lives in another state, who I see maybe once or twice a year. So we ended up going to Snapchat just because I knew he had a flip phone and he wouldn't be able to follow me with video messages, so we went to Snapchat. Now, Tinder. I'm an executive, and I have a good friend who is in Generation X, who called me and said, "Purcell, I work 60 hours a week, and I don't have time to find love," which my grandparents, who've been together for 50 years now, have taught me and ingrained in me the values of love. But he recently went to Tinder, an application, and he recently met his new girlfriend. I must say they are truly in love. But he said, "Purcell, she's a millennial, and I didn't have time, so I hopped on Tinder and we fell in love instantly." So being a millennial, I have a lot of millennial friends who always are looking for jobs. Back in the day, my grandparents, the baby boomers and Generation X, they would have to go to the Washington Post. They would have to physically go to those locations to find out if locations were hiring. Well, us as millennials, we figured it'd be a lot easier if we just go to LinkedIn, update our resume, and hopefully somebody reach out to us about a job position. Growing up as a millennial, we always learned how to mix music with learning. I remember learning my ABCs as a young child growing up. And there was an experiment that I did the other day with my youngest son, who is 9 years old, and I asked him to say, "Jordan, what comes in the alphabet after the letter Q?" And he said, "R." I said, "You're right." But as a millennial, that's how we were taught how to learn. That's what we were taught in schools when it comes to our education. But now we have this thing called YouTube. The other day, my mother sent me a link. She lives in another state as well. And she said, watch this link. It was a YouTube link. It took a lot out of it. I didn't have to call her. I didn't have to ask her what she thought. I was able to form my own opinion based on how we, as millennials and baby boomers and Generation X and the next generation coming behind us, Generation Z, that's how we learn now, using YouTube. So I bring you to this topic next, which is education. Growing up, my grandfather always used to say, after he came back from the war, it's not who you know, it's what you know. And you need to make sure that you get a good education and save money. Growing up as a millennial, like a lot of other millennials, that's what we were ingrained based on the baby boomers and our Generation X, which we call our parents. I'm not going to say my grandfather was wrong when it comes to education, when he says it's not who you know, it's what you know. But in this time that we live in now, it's now who you know, along with what you know. I just hired a receptionist at the store that I work at now, and she says, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in biochemistry, biology. And I said, so you're working in a dealership now? She says, yes, because unless I get my master's degree or know somebody, my degree as a bachelor means nothing in her current field. The gentleman in this picture, his name is Grant Cardone. A lot of you guys probably know him as a motivational guy, but Grant Cardone is actually really good friends with my boss. My boss has 26 dealerships all over Maryland, DC, and Virginia, but they're really good friends. And this day last year, when I met Grant Cardone, I asked him, I said, Grant, did you fly in last night? He said, no, Purcell. I flew in this morning at 3 o'clock. I hopped on my jet from Miami, landed in Baltimore. I got to Baltimore around 5 o'clock, 5:30. Your boss picked me up in Baltimore and drove me to this event. I said, interesting. He says, if it wasn't for your boss, I would not have came to this event because I don't personally go to places anymore. I do virtual meetings and I do virtual things, and I have Cardone University, and I have so many ways of platforms of communication that I don't physically have to go to those places anymore. But I did it for your boss. So who you know is very important, along with the education that you have. There's a total of 194 countries in this world that we live in. I remember going to go vote for the first time and looking and seeing Hawaiian Islander when I had to choose my nationality or my ethnicity, race. And I saw Hawaiian Islander, I saw African American, I saw Caucasian or white, I saw Hawaiian Islander. But the one thing that has changed in this millennial age that we live in is the internet. When the internet was adopted in the late 1990s, early 2000s, and it's only going to get stronger as we continue to move on through the next generations. The internet is the one thing that keeps everything level. On the internet, they don't care whether you're white or whether you're black. On the internet, they don't care if you're Asian. They don't care if you're Hawaiian. The only one thing that the internet cares about is how much time you put into it and how much effort you put into it and how much effort and technology you're willing to learn, because you can learn as much as you can now with Google. Mark Zuckerberg in 2004 dropped out of college as a sophomore at Harvard University to start a website. He dropped out of college at Harvard as a sophomore to start a website. In 2004, that was almost 15 years ago. And now look how Facebook is connecting us. Look at Instagram. Look at all these other social media platforms that we use daily. I had a conversation with my grandmother. My grandmother is not on social media at all. I have a grandmother who's not on social media. And I asked my grandmother, I said, Grandma, do you watch the news? And she said she does. She said, you should start watching the news too, grandbaby. I said, we got a great president. If I need to know anything, he'll tweet it. More likely before I'll hear it in the news. But with Instagram and Twitter, we're able to find out current events. We're able to find out what the weather is with the weather app. We don't have to wait till the 5 commercial breaks to watch TV to figure out what the weather is and with the things that we have at our disposal now with technology. The difference between us now is the 24 hours that we have in a day. The day of 24 hours is broken up into 2 equal parts, 12 hours for the morning, which we call AM, and 12 hours at night, which we call PM. Most baby boomers, most millennials, and most Generation X, this is their daily struggle on a daily basis with finding more time in the 24 hours that they already have. A lot of people say, how does Oprah Winfrey, or how does Puff Daddy, or how does Jay-Z, or a lot of these guys, or Warren Buffett, or how do they have so much time to be able to do the things that they do and manage their 24 hours in a day? And hopefully today I will give you a strategy of what to focus on to help you get to that place as well, which has helped me. I start with sleep. Help Guide states that in order to be able to be at your best performance as an adult, and this varies from adult to adult, but they recommend that you get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. In between there, I found the perfect median of 8. Forbes recently put out a study that states that 50% of America now works from home, remotely, or they telework more than a few days a week. Why is that? Maybe because of Zoom, video meeting conferences, maybe because of FaceTime, maybe because of Skype. And I say work, I basically categorize that as how effective are you? Because we do have some baby boomers who no longer work. The 8 hours a day, how effective are you with that 8 hours that you're not sleeping? Which brings me to the next 8 hours, which I like to call invisible time. Now, when it comes to invisible time, especially in this area here, majority of us spend our invisible time in traffic. If you're not part of that 50% that teleworks, thanks to the millennials and their entitlement of not wanting to go to work, work from home. But that invisible time, the time that you're spending on that 30-minute lunch break, or that time that you leave your office to go and get something to eat, and then have to wait to get something to eat because everybody else is at Chipotle or elsewhere. Well, now we have Uber Eats, Grubhub. We have technology. Technology is what's going to fill those voids of those 8 hours. The more time you can spend activating yourself with technology, the more time you can get to know how technology works, the more time you can actually spend focusing on how you can change or create that next website. Technology is what's going to fill that void. Whether it's you listening to YouTube in your car on your way to work, or maybe it's you being on LinkedIn because you're looking for that new job, because you're unemployed if you're a millennial who's not working. But technology is where we're going to fill that void. And I pray that everybody can truly take in what I'm saying, because this is only evolving when it comes to the next generations that come behind us. So I would like to say thank you so much for your time and attendance. Focus on filling that void of the 8 hours. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.